Bibi Fahodie African family. It's Bama Deli with my beautiful wife Naila, and we're back after a long leave of absence. We want to update our African family on some developments. We've decided to permanently stay in Tanzania. This is our new home. We're very blessed, to be building our family in the land of our ancestors. And so, Naila, do you have anything to share with the audience?
Apologies for the wind. We are outside and on our front porch. So if you hear wind and trees, we can't do anything about it.
Right. It's not the audio. It's just the creator doing his work.
Right.
Okay.
Other than that, thank you guys for being patient with us. I know we've been doing our own thing. So thank you for being patient. And
Yes. So what brings us back? So we wanted to talk about something that's been on our radar for a while now, and we felt it was very imperative that we talk about it and bring this discussion up as an African family. And that's this phenomenon of Africans in the diaspora and just around the world in general adopting these yurugu mentalities when it comes to business. And I think it's very important as Africans that when we engage in business, we engage in business in a way that's culturally literate. That means that's honoring the traditions that our ancestors laid down and not following the traditions of Yurugu and our enemies. So go ahead.
We have to understand that anything outside of our culture is not going to benefit us.
Right.
It's just not. As much as it may look like it's benefiting the people who created it, yes, it will benefit them, but it will not benefit us in any circumstance. And if it does, it's a benefit for the individual, not for the collective.
Exactly. And I think one of the key insights that we can really learn from when it comes to evaluating how Africans do business, and specifically I'm talking to the Africans in America, because that's where this phenomenon seems to be the most kind of out of control. And we have to look at the teachings of Nana Dr. Amos Wilson. And he told us that America is what he called a crimogenic society. And a crimogenic society is a society that's built upon criminality. So criminality, as I put it, isn't a violation of the law, it is the law.
It's what helps it function.
It's what helps the society breathe and survive and prolong itself. So if you look at the origins of America, much like the origins of other settler colonial societies like Australia, America was the dumping ground for European criminals. And those European criminals, once they arrived on the mainland, they immediately began the process of genocide against the indigenous population. Then they kidnapped Africans and enslaved them for centuries in order to build the wealth that we now call America. So when we're looking at a nation such as America, you can't really appreciate what it is without first addressing the root. That means, what was its origins? Because everything that's in the origins of a society is going to manifest also in its current happenings. So if you're engaged in any type of investment and that investment requires you to wed yourself to the American economy, you're contributing to that same culture of theft that abused your ancestors.
Even if you as an individual is running a legit, clean business, if you are contributing to anything outside of your culture, it's considered a scam.
Right, and that's the biggest scam we have to understand. Scam, we're taught to think of it as a purely economic thing, but for Africans, we're a spiritual people, so we must always analyze things from a spiritual perspective. So from the African-centered perspective, a scam is anything that forces you to step outside of the culture of your ancestors.
Who taught you how to do business?
Who taught you how to do business? Who taught you that the profit motive should take precedent over the security of the village? Who taught you that? And once we begin to ask those questions, we'll have a lot more clarity about how to do business and what types of businesses present a threat to African people.
And why we're seeing it more and more now in African communities. It's been happening in white communities. All white business is a scam. Let's be clear. Amazon, you think you're getting a fair price? Walmart, you think you're getting a fair price? No, you're being scammed. They just have the tools, the means, the production, and everything like that to be able to cover their tracks. Africans, we don't have the capital to be able to cover the scams that we do. So let's be clear. Any business, especially white business, is a scam if it's outside of African culture.
Yes, and even the word scam, it's not of African origin.
It's not. It's an American word.
It's an American word that originated in what they call carnival slang in the 1960s.
Right.
So when you have, and that's another key we have to focus in on, whenever people have words to describe a phenomenon, that means it's so widespread that they had to think of a word to express it.
Yes.
So, and we contrast that with words in Kiswahili.
Right.
So, for example, it's one word to express "I care and love you" in Swahili.
I care about you.
I care about you.
It's one word.
So, and conversely, in Europe, they have one word to describe sexual abuse of children. They call it pedophilia. You know, so we have...
No, that's not... It was the sexual...
The friendly love
of a child.
Which is a lot
worse.
They
named that.
They named it. So
we didn't have words for that.
So what you name gives you an idea of the cultural basis and the asili of those people. So the first point that we're trying to drive home with this is business reasons cannot be a priority over spiritual wellness and health of the family when repatriating. And then our goal is to give you a spiritual reason for leaving America.
Yes.
Not to develop your business.
No.
Not to make an investment. No, the reason you should want to uproot and leave the captivity that is America is because African people cannot survive in an environment where their spirituality is being denied.
That's the fundamental reason. Coming to Africa for any other reason outside of escaping America is not a good idea. This is why you can go back in our videos and we never talk about business.
Yes.
We never. What?
Why?
What for what?
Yeah. Because we know that businesses can fail.
Yes.
But when you have a spiritual commitment, that cannot fail.
That can't fail.
Not only can it not fail, but it's eternal.
Yes.
In essence, your spirit is eternal. Even when your physical self dissolves, your spirit remains.
Right.
But what happens when your business dissolves? Is there a spirit to the business that's going to remain? No. Because if there's no money in the accounts of that business doesn't exist.
Right.
So we have to begin kind of basing our foundation on things that are eternal,
spiritual,
and not things that are fleeting, that can be taken away with the snap of a finger,
or can fall apart because accusations have come about.
Right.
Like what? No, base it on something outside of yourself. Like it can't be a selfish reason why you come to the continent. It has to be something. It has to be a village mindset.
Yes.
And if you're coming with a business mindset and village, those things don't mix. Unfortunately, they don't.
Yes, they don't. They're incompatible. They're irreconcilably different, as Baba Baruti would say.
Yes, he does.
So, and here I just want to have a point of clarification because the word spirituality is thrown around a lot.
Manifest, spirituality, all these ancestors.
These words are being abused, and I think it's important that we define words, because when we define words, when they're used, it's a lot more impactful and you can actually do something with it.
Yeah.
So what is my definition of spirituality? So I define spirituality as a complex set of relationships with yourself, others, the environment, ancestors, that has as its main purpose honoring the Africanity in all things. And why do I say the Africanity in all things? Because your Africanness is your origin of everything. So everything that we think of as civilized began in Africa. So unless you're tracing something back to Africa, it can be traced back to Yurugu. It's either or.
This is why we're not saying black first. We're not saying African American first. We're saying African first.
African. Because that was the first human.
Right.
The first human wasn't African American. The first human was African. And Nana Frances Cress Welsing, she put it in very clear terms. She said you have to play the black side of the chessboard. And what we have today is we have a lot of so-called African Americans trying to play as if there's a gray side, meaning they can straddle the fence. They can play the white side and the black side. So they're playing the gray side.
They play the white side with business, and then they get on social media, and it's the black side. Right. No, which is it? It's one or the other.
Consistently play the black side of the chessboard. And what does that mean, to consistently play the black side of the chessboard? It means throwing away white business ethics and then adopting Ujamaa. And what is Ujamaa? Ujamaa is the African business ethics. It's cooperative economics. And also Ujamaa also means family.
Yeah.
And that highlights how in African cultures, business is only as valuable to the extent that it nurtures the family, not the individual, not your bank account, the family. So unless you can create a narrative that says the business that I'm creating benefits not just my biological family, but my African family. If it's not benefiting the African family, then you're practicing yurugu business. So that's something that we have to bear in mind when we're doing business.
Let's be clear. When we were in America, we were doing the same thing too. We're not saying this is you. No, when we were in America, we were also participating in scammery business because we were furthering yurugu entities.
And how do you know you're participating in a scam within America? If you call yourself an employee of anybody in America, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you pay taxes, so it seems like you're trapped.
Yeah.
Exactly, you're trapped.
You're trapped.
So when you're trapped, what do? You escape the prison.
Everything we say usually, no, always will lead back to you have to leave.
Yes.
And this is not just something that we just think is just so cool. No, it's spiritual reasons. When we're saying it's spiritually, on business, on education, on food, on air, on every level, you have to leave. It's not, and this is just another one of the things that we can use to say this is why being in America isn't good. And when you do leave the continent, you have to leave yurugu business practices where they belong.
Yes, not just geographically. You have to leave psychologically and spiritually.
Don't bring that to the continent, please.
Yes.
Don't do it.
So the second point that we're underscoring here is all business in America is a scam. And then it's the small time scammers don't have the resources or institutional power to conceal the lie of American business. Nope. People in America have illusion-based identities, so they sell illusions. Africans have real identities, so they sell real items.
They make tables,
like
and
tables,
chairs.
like the chairs we're sitting in,
like our couch.
Like these are things you can actually use. They don't sell you happiness. They don't sell you a dream. They sell you something that you can take back to your family. You can take back to your African family and use.
That's the real tangible.
Craftsmen, working with your hands. And that's something that we have to get back into the habit of appreciating. Yes. Appreciating those people who not only own their labor, but the fruit of their labor actually heals and helps African families. And not just gives you a psychological thrill that gives you the illusion that you can escape fighting the white supremacists right in front of you. And that's what
say that again.
We should start to appreciate Africans who not only own their labor, but who the fruit of their labor heals and helps the African family, and not get involved in ways of thinking that convinces us that we don't have to fight the white supremacists that's looking right at us.
Because that's really what scamming is.
It's a stalling tactic. It's a way to engage with the economy that's oppressing you that can prolong your life.
Yep.
Saying, I'm going to sacrifice the rest of my African brothers and sisters so that I can be exempt from the punishment of yurugu. But yurugu doesn't discriminate. When he wants to get you, he'll get you.
Period.
Once he's exhausted your usefulness, and your usefulness is not infinite. That's the thing. Everybody's usefulness is limited when they're working on behalf of others. But the usefulness is eternal when they're working on behalf of the Creator.
Yes. And their African brothers
African brothers and sisters. Because you can destroy somebody physically when they're working on behalf of their Creator, and they'll still be useful as an ancestor. But if you're working on behalf of your enemy, when he destroys you, you're not even useful as an ancestor. Because in your real life, you was a coon.
Exactly.
And that's the problem of scamming.
Yes.
It gets you into this spirituality that says, my usefulness is only as good as it gives me a material return. And it doesn't value the importance of imparting wisdom to the youth. It's like the Erykah Badu song, teach our children wisdom so they can live tomorrow.
And then we look at the youth and be like, why they like this? What?
The parents,
the elders.
Yes.
Y'all been practicing yurugu business for centuries now. That's why the youth look like this.
Yes. I've never heard the statement said, but it's worth bearing in mind. And that's the significance of the white family. as a weapon against African people. So I'll say this:
like
without the white family, there is no white supremacy. The white family, as a unit of oppression against the African family, is the cultural seed of white supremacy. What am I saying? We must learn to attack the white family. Not the white man, the white family. Does that include children? Yes,
absolutely.
It includes children. We have to attack the,
what do you think
the white
children
father,
to be?
the white mother, and the white child. What did Nat Turner do? Did he just attack the white man alone? No, he attacked the white family. Why is it important to attack the white family? Because the white family, that's the breeding ground for all of these cultural dysfunctions that we are adopting as African people. If you look back into the antebellum period where whites owned slaves, they would gift their babies, their infant children, adult Africans as gifts. So even at the point of infancy, they was affirming that a central part of our family functionality, yurugu functionality, is the exchange of African bodies for money.
And these are babies.
And this was the basis of the wealth of a lot of white families during that period. So I'm saying if the wealth of a white family is contingent upon the enslavement of African people, that family's psychology cannot possibly come anywhere near African family psychology. So we have to start looking at white families as our enemy.
As a whole.
Not just the white man, not just, oh, the husband is racist, but the wife is fine. No.
And the kids, they ain't got nothing to do with,
It's all familial. And I think...
And they understand that. Because that's what they do with the African family. What do they do? What is the number one, what is their number one enemy? The African family. Genetic annihilation. They see African families and they shiver. What do you... Let's not pretend like we don't know this. They practice this. We have a reason and incentive to practice this.
And it goes back to what I said earlier, Ujamaa. Ujamaa is familyhood. Why is it important that whites get Africans to internalize their concepts of family? Because not only does it destroy the family, but it destroys their whole economic system too. Because the economic system is an outgrowth of the family.
Right.
You know, so it's like you get two in one. I destroy the relationship between the mother and the father. I destroy the relationship between the mother and the child. I destroy the relationship between the father and the child. And I destroy the relationships between each family within that village structure, so that they're all individualists seeking profit in the same way Yurugus are individualists seeking profits.
Yes. And we actually have notes on the video. We haven't recorded it yet on families in America.
Yes.
And how we're not even, the families that we call families in America is not,
it's a fictional
construct.
Yes.
Let's be clear. We're not practicing healthy family practices in America with our families. Families here, the way they operate is completely different. Completely different.
And white families, the way I put it, they operate on a model of competition. Black families operate on a model of cooperation, meaning black families unite their resources to build a nation. White families compete with each other to dominate others who are less fortunate within the nation. And you see it in European history. Look at the story of Edward V, a child monarch, and he was murdered by his uncle. And this was something that happened throughout European history.
In Greeks, they used their fear was that the
son would overtake the father
and marry the mother.
What is the whole Oedipus complex about? It's about a son wanting to murder his father and marry his mother.
Those are their origins.
These are the workings of a people who are psychologically ill in a way that Africans can't even conceive of.
We don't even have a glimpse, an idea, because we don't study their origins the way we should. We study our origins to an extent, but we have to study Yurugu origins. We have to study European origins to really understand and appreciate who we are. Because it wasn't until we started studying and reading books like Yurugu that we really started to be like, oh wow, they're much worse than we thought, and we're much more amazing than we thought that we were. When you start comparing the two, it's literally night and day. What is good for them is bad for us, and what's bad for us is good for them.
And here's the thing. I would condense what we just said in a simple statement. Throw away the 48 laws of power.
Oh my God.
And pick up the 42 laws of Ma'at.
If you
throw away the 48 laws of power and pick up the 42 laws of Ma'at.
If somebody is telling you We learned this. If somebody is advocating 48 laws of power,
head towards the exit.
That is a white male. How can he possibly help any African person further their business in a legitimate way?
Unless
have you read any of the laws?
And he hasn't shown any inclination to suicide.
Have you read any of the laws? Yeah. And if you've read any of the laws of Ma'at and you've read the 48 laws of power, they're completely at a conflict. Completely.
Now, what does our master teacher, Mama Marimba Ani, and in the margins of this passage, I wrote 48 laws of power. That's why I'm focusing on this passage, because I think what she describes as the rhetorical ethic, it captures what white psychology is, and furthermore, what white business is based upon. So I'm going to read this short passage, and I want you all to really think about what she's saying, because it's these teachers like this give us the keys to our liberation.
Right.
What she says is, European culture is constructed in such a way that successful survival within it discourages honesty and directness and encourages dishonesty and deceit. The ability to appear to be something other than what one is, to hide oneself, one's motives and intent. People who are duped by others and relate to a projected image are considered fools or country bumpkins. Hypocrisy in this way becomes not a negative personality trait, not immoral or abnormal behavior, but it is both expected and cultivated. So negative, immoral behavior is not an aberration in European culture.
Right.
It's the natural, logical outcome of the systems that they put in place. And then later in the same chapter, she says a shorter phrase that
what's the page number
simplifies. That was on page number 316.
Yeah, because some people have the book.
And then on page 334, she says, it is dictated by the asili of European culture that the European should have two faces and a forked tongue. He must lie.
What was the last line?
He must lie.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I would expand on that. I would say he, she, and the children must lie. They all must lie.
Their existence is built on a lie. Let's not act like we don't know this.
So we have to understand when you're dealing with the Europeans, and that's what the public relations industry is, by the way.
PR?
Advertising is just a euphemism for systematized deceit. That's all it is. Why do you think America spends so much money on public relations? Billions of dollars just so they can wow you with graphic design? No, they're trying to get into your psychology.
And they are.
And they are. And it shows in our kind of willingness to stay in captivity.
Yes.
Because if we weren't under the spell of that public relations, we would break out of captivity. And this is how we have to start rereading our scriptures better. Because when the scriptures talked about lead us not into temptation, they wasn't talking about a snake in the Garden of Eden.
No.
They were talking about propaganda. Political propaganda is the temptation that the Bible warns us against.
You're literally saying deliver us from evil living in America. I don't understand. Is there anything more evil than America?
Yes.
Is there?
Yes.
There can't.
You can't say deliver us from evil and then you have a big screen TV in your house. That's the instrument to give you the evil.
Brothers and sisters.
That's the snake in the Garden of Eden, the TV. And I think that's part of the damage, the psychological damage that Europeans have done is they've made us literalistic thinkers like them.
Like them.
Because when the Europeans looked at the carvings and the Metu Neter in Kemet, they didn't understand that Africans used animals to symbolize principles of nature.
Right.
They thought we was worshiping birds and crocodiles because they didn't have that functioning pineal to decode what our ancestors was trying to tell us. But
and
we
picked that same up. We picked that same mentality up. We thinking in their minds and not in our African mind.
Get back into your African mind and we'll immediately begin to see the ways in which we engage with each other aren't native to us, but they're scripted to us by our enemies.
And coming to the continent doesn't negate that. You have to work and you have to intentionally fight against that mentality prior to coming here.
Right.
And that's why the videos we talk when we say these things, it always leads back to leaving.
Yes.
But it also leads back to studying.
Leaving the Yurugu here first.
Yes, here and here.
Because if Africans say you're essentially spiritual in nature, they're going to value that spiritual transformation more than that physical relocation.
And the money, it doesn't matter. Like the money is irrelevant. Like the money is just something to help make things.
It's a means.
It's a means, but it's not the. It should not be the reason. You should not be coming out here saying, "I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna give Africa." Oh, that's another thing we need to address.
Saving Africa.
Stop coming to Africa to save Africans. They don't need saving. You came from prison. We are the ones that need saving. We are the ones that need healing. We are the ones that can use them to help us heal. And we should be here to learn. We shouldn't be here talking all the time.
And this is the thing. You should ask them, what is your understanding of African history? Because a lot of times when people spend a lot of time reading, they think that the book somehow prevents them. It means more than the actual elders in front of you. You know, like, I don't care if they're African-centered or not. If they're an elder on the continent, they've lived enough life that they could teach you so much. They can teach you so much about African people. They can teach you about African culture. They can teach you their language. And that's another thing. We have to value how language structures our thought. We're sitting here and we're speaking the language of demons. Not happily. Not happily
at all. When we finally learn Swahili, y'all gonna have to figure out a way to translate, because you ain't gonna be doing English for much longer. Because I'm trying to get rid of the colonizer language as soon as possible.
So we should start to devalue the African American and value the African, because the African American is a captive to Yurugu.
Don't bring the African American to Africa. Bring them.
But the African is the dominant over Yurugu. Africans don't know how to submit except to the Creator. That's the only thing they know, and that's just submitting to yourself, because the Creator lives within us.
India, and you are not going to defeat Yurugu being an African American.
No.
Nope. It's just not gonna. Hapana Sante. You will not do it. Kaka dada. You won't. So let's get into our African minds, because being an African American is not enough. Being black is not enough. Being pro-black is not enough. You have to understand your origins, and you have to understand their origins. I think at some point we have to realize that clearly African Americans and black people aren't fighting Yurugu.
Nah, they're fighting the kind of the picture of inferiority that Yurugu has forced upon them.
They're fighting for justice. And
instead of embracing the superior being that their ancestors have given them. Because if we study our history, we'll immediately understand that we're superior. But we don't study our history. So all we have to go off of are the pictures of inferiority that our enemies give us. And those pictures of inferiority that our enemies give us, why do they give it to us? Do they give it to us so that we can be enraged, righteously enraged to fight them? No, they give it to us so we can fight ourselves. So that we exhaust all our energy trying to prove to our enemies that we're human, instead of proving to ourselves and our ancestors that we're superior to our enemies. We don't have anything to prove to our enemies. They're our enemies. If you're in an actual war, you're not going to be trying to show the opposing army that you know how to shoot a gun. You know how you show the opposing army you know how to shoot a gun when they feel your bullets. That's how you show them you know how to use a gun.
Ain't no talking.
You don't say, hey, look, I know how to practice. No, you just make them feel what you know.
Ain't no 5-10 slides.
And that's what we have to start doing as Africans. Make our enemies feel who we are. We don't have nothing to show you. You will feel our dominance in the way we embrace our Africanness.
It's nothing else to talk about. It's nothing else to teach. We have to know who our enemies are.
Not knowing your enemy is hating yourself.
It literally is. And wanting to be in the presence of your enemy is hating yourself.
You're comfortable with self-hate in your ignorance of your enemy. Ignorance of your enemy is comfortable in your self-hate. So 4, every reality has a spiritual dimension that shows its ultimate truth. We will be fooled if we don't realize the deepest scam is investing in people, institutions, products that are outside your culture. Expanded definition of scams. Funding people who want to kill you is a scam. So, and that's what it means to be an American as an African. You're funding people who want to kill you. And we said that in a previous video. My wife says we were tired of paying white people's bills. Yes. That's what you're doing in America. Even when you feel that you're enriching yourself, you're also enriching America, because you're giving the image to other Africans that it's okay for you to live in captivity. So it doesn't matter how big your house is. It doesn't matter how nice your car is. It doesn't matter what your credit score is. If you're still in captivity, you're an exemplary example to other Africans that it's okay to live in captivity. Because look at me, I'm prospering. But what would your ancestors say?
Would your ancestors care about a credit score?
No, your ancestors wanted to go back home. And that's why they jumped over the ship when they was on the way here. They didn't ask Massa, what are the business opportunities in America? No, they said, I'm going back home because that's where I belong.
Right.
We have to get back into the mindset that Baba Ishaka Musa Bar Shango said, the Yurugu is our natural enemy.
Oh my God.
Our natural enemy.
He didn't say...
Not by circumstance, by nature.
Natural, meaning nothing can change. No matter how many white friends you have, no matter if you're married to a white man or white woman, natural enemy.
And when you have a natural enemy, it's unnatural to want to be in their presence.
Going against your nature.
That's the biggest violation of nature that there is among African people. This idea that we can coexist with beasts who want us dead.
And coexisting not just with them in marriage and friends, but coexisting with their business practices.
And lastly, I want to touch on something, and I wrote it out in a diagram, but I mean, it's not easy to see, but it basically shows what I call the hierarchy of humanity. So we have to understand that one of the biggest things that Yurugu has done to us is they flipped the kind of the reality, just like the same way they flipped the map. You know, like they show all the countries upside down instead of right side up.
All the continents are just...
In Kemet, you know, what we call north today was actually south. And what we call south today was actually north. So we have to understand that part of Yurugu psychological warfare is to flip everything upside down. And part of that flipping of everything upside down was to flip our conception of what a human being is. Right. So within the European mind, the hierarchy goes white family, black family, African family. Now notice I separated black family from African family because the black family is captive to the white family. The African family is independent and sovereign, but they're so small in number that they've been pushed down on the scale of power.
And the propaganda that we have been given of Africa has made us think that African families is down here. So we don't want to be associated.
So in the consciousness of America, that's the hierarchy: white family, black family, African family. Yeah. Now, what is the model in the consciousness of the black person in America? They would like it to be the black-white family hybrid over the African family.
They want to mix.
What does that mean? They want to escape, get away from the Africans, mix with the whites so that I can become this new hybrid kind of race, this kind of biracial mulatto race that hovers over all of the African savagery. So you have the black-white hybrid over the African.
And we're seeing that in media. We're seeing the African woman and the white man together. We're seeing the black man and the white woman together. And we're seeing all these mixed children being put into our face in all these commercials and stuff.
That's not a coincidence, and that's another level of scamming. But it's not economic, it's spiritual. Right. It's scamming you out of your genetic heritage, your genetic material. You know, you're worrying about the dollar bills with the slave owners on it. Meanwhile, they're taking your genes. So which one should you be focusing on? Is it George Washington, Thomas Jefferson on dollar bills, or should you be focused on the fact that 4 generations from now, they're going to be looking at your descendants and they aren't going to see any Africa in their face?
But you know what's so sad is that we are in such captivity to Europeans mentally, spiritually that we aren't even looking. We're not even looking for generations ahead. We're literally only focused on now because we've been being killed. We're seeing images of us being killed that we don't even think we will. Who cares about the generations up ahead? I'm living for right now. Right. They ain't got nothing to do with me. Right. That's a European mindset. Right. They would kill their kids. They killed their wives. They were liabilities. And now we're picking up those same yurugu practices in the way we do business. Because we're just like, well, as long as I'm good, as long as I'm getting it, as long as I'm eating, it ain't got nothing to do with the people that I don't know yet, the future generations. That's yurugu. Right.
We're looking at our African brothers and sisters as liabilities instead of beings, divine beings who we can unite with to liberate ourselves. You know. So I went through the American human hierarchy. Again, white family, black family, African
family.
The black consciousness, the black-white hybrid over the African. Now, what is the African reality? It's very simple. The African over yurugu.
There is no black.
Now, notice in the two previous models, I didn't even say yurugu. And that's part of the game that Europeans do, is they don't want you to know that they're yurugu. But once you step into that African reality, you see, oh, not only is the hierarchy very simple of the African over yurugu, but the African is really the only human. The only genuine human in the sense that the African created civilization. He created agriculture. He created everything that yurugu now is claiming as their own. As destroying. Right now, as we speak.
And they have come and destroyed it. How does that make them humans?
The worst stewards ever.
Yes.
They took no care of the things that we gave them. So it's time for us to take back what we foolishly, and that's a mistake our ancestors made. We gave them the education not knowing that they weren't capable of doing divine things with that. Yes. So therefore it's incumbent upon us to take it back and not make the same mistake, meaning now we're going to share our gift of civilization with other Africans. And the first African you can share that with is yourself. Civilize ourselves in the deep sense, not in the sense that the colonialists talked about it. Because when the colonizers talked about civilizing the Africans, they meant submit to us. Right. Whatever submitting to the European was, they called it civilization. When we talk about civilization, we're talking about returning to the source, returning to Kemet, returning to a time where in Kemet, where if they saw someone with pale skin and red hair, they killed them on sight.
It was no discussion. It was like, all right, but he's nice to us. He brought us some food and he's talking real nice. I think he can stay. No, it wasn't no discussion. It was like, all right, offer him.
And that's not an insight of some crazy YouTuber. No. That's an insight from Sheikh Anta Diop, the most renowned anthropologist, African anthropologist, in history probably. So, and he studied Kemet, and he said that they looked at pale skin as being representative of you being unfit for survival.
And now how do we look at pale skin? Now we have Africans bleaching.
As something to idolize.
If that's not completely opposite, I don't know what is. At one point they were being killed for their skin, and now they're being praised for the... How did we...
Again, everything upside down. What's bad is good, and what's good is bad. What's unnatural is natural, and what's natural is unnatural.
And we have African people thinking that business practices that come from yurugus is good. How? Anything that's good if it's working for them, it won't work for us. It may work for a time period. You may get some dollar bills with some yurugu faces on it, a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not working for the collective. And yurugus are perfectly fine with the individual an individual Black American or Black person being successful. They're perfectly fine with that. They put those images in front of us for a reason. They're okay with one-offs. They're not okay with a collective of Africans coming together and not practicing yurugu practices and saying we don't want anything to do with you. They're not okay with that. They're okay with it. A few of y'all winning and a few of y'all making business moves. They're okay with a few. But when all of y'all start doing it and all y'all start acting African, now they're going to be like, all right, now we got to kill them.
Because their model is still intact.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, and this is the kind of parting kind of statement I think I can make is, and I stated it at the beginning, And a lot of, I think, Africans, we misunderstand, and you see it in memes. They'll be like, look at Bill Gates, he's a billionaire. He's not flashing his money. Look, he's wearing like cardigan sweaters and he just drives around in a normal car. This is why Europeans, and they make it seem as though Europeans have some type of
humbleness.
Not humbleness. No, they make it seem as though they have some type of inside information about how to accumulate wealth that Africans don't know.
Yeah.
No, why have Europeans been so successful economically? One, violence, but where does the violence come from? Their culture. They're culturally consistent, and they've managed to channel all of their cultural imperatives into their economics. And because they have a culturally literate economic base, they are able to dominate. Now, what our job is our job to mimic their culture in order to dominate? No, our job is to do what? Play the black side of the chessboard. What does that mean? Ujamaa. Practice our cultural base. Yep. And when we tap into our cultural base, it will dominate their cultural base. Because their cultural base is based off of weaponry, savagery, deception, lies. Our cultural base is based off of creativity, cooperation, and nation building.
Period. Nation building doesn't include yurugu business practices.
Yes.
How you go nation building in Africa with yurugu business practices?
So the key to prosperity, and not financial prosperity, but human prosperity.
Right.
The key to becoming human at the deepest level is to develop inquisitiveness about your ancestors and yourself. Your real ancestors, not the ancestors who tell you to meditate, the ones who tell you to fight.
Yes.
Those ancestors.
And particularly the ancestors from the continent, not just the ancestors in America.
Right. Like Thomas Sankara.
Yeah, we have to get past yes, we have to acknowledge those ancestors that live on the continent, but we also have to go further back. Our history did not start in America.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
Yes.
That's why calling yourself an African American is laughable.
Yes. So develop an appreciation for living at a human level and not living as an animal, because that's what America does. It turns us into people on a kind of low frequency. Like we don't know how to kind of evolve past that third energy level where you're just very carnal. You're just very appetite driven. And that's, again, the public relations. It's supposed to stimulate that. It stimulates our lower regions. It stimulates our lower self. What place do you have in America where you can go where you can access your higher self? And if you don't have the answer to that, that's a sign you need to leave America, because that's just not an annoyance. They're attacking you spiritually.
And yeah, I agree. And like we said in the beginning, we made this video because it seems like it's just so many different people that are coming up that are African, that are black people in America and on the continent, that it just seems like this is just a thing now. And you don't usually hear of the word scam associated with white people.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear the word scam, what do you think of?
Yeah.
You think of black people.
It's a stereotype of Nigerians as scammers.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? So I think, and it's happening more now. Why are we seeing more scam, this scammery culture now than we have before? Probably is because of social media and you just have access to more information. But I think it's also happening more now. It's not just that we have access to see it happening. I think it's also just that we're such in a low frequency, and we've been around yurugu practices for so long that this is just inevitable. It's just inevitable for people who are in captivity, that have been in captivity for this long, to be scammers.
It's the Africans are becoming more American.
Yes,
that's what's happening.
They're becoming more yurugu. They're becoming more
Yurugu.
white. European. This is why we say there is no black, there is no African American. It's yurugu or African.
And a crimogenic society doesn't discriminate.
Yes.
It's not just going to infect the original criminals who are yurugu. It's going to infect anybody under the dominion of those criminals.
It's a disease. It's literally a disease. And if you're around that disease long enough, of course you're going to be a scammer. I mean, how do you not be a scammer? And like we said, if you're practicing, if you're working for anybody in America. And if you are even entrepreneurs, I was an entrepreneur in America. I was also, like I said, participating in scammerish entities. If I'm paying taxes, and if I'm going to stores and with the money that I got from my business and giving it to other white businesses who are clearly scamming and are making billions and billions in minutes, like that's part of the scam. If you're furthering the scam,
yeah. I mean, look at Walmart. You got employees who can't even afford Thanksgiving dinner. They on food stamps. You know,
that's a scam.
That's a scam.
So we have to redefine what that really means. It's not just somebody coming out and taking your credit card number information and going shopping. It's much deeper than that, and we have to look at the origins of where it came from.
And when we look at those origins, then the solution will become immediate.
It's very simple.
Clear.
I'm like, oh, okay, so I see now everything around me is a scam. I gotta leave.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's not just that person over there. It's not just him over there. It's everybody. Everybody is participating. And that's why it flows the way it flows.
Yes.
If scammers went away, let me tell you something. You wouldn't be trying to stay in America. America would look completely different if scams did not exist.
Because it will require an engagement with your true self.
Now what?
And a part of the scamming culture is you must become lost in this world of illusion. You must become lost in the world of appetite. You must become lost in the world of desire.
You're a slave to your appetite.
Anything but enlightenment. Because once you hit that point of enlightenment, everything becomes toxic. Everything becomes poisonous. Everything becomes contaminated.
You put the glasses on,
and
you can't unsee. You can't unsee it now. And now it's like, okay, now I gotta get out.
Now you gotta get out.
Now I know.
Like, you know the feeling you get when you go to a public restroom and it's just very dirty?
You be like
America just becomes one big public restroom.
Yes.
And you just be like, you don't want to touch nothing. You just want to get out.
I'ma just hold it till I get home.
You just want to get out.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's how we have to start acting within captivity.
Yeah.
You know, those people who are still within captivity. And I call out to my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, we do.
We want you to develop a desire to leave.
Yes.
And that's it, because we always say we aren't even exempt from these things that we talk about. And that's why we're so passionate about it, because we know the damage that it does to you spiritually.
Yeah.
And because we know the damage it does spiritually, we're imploring you to set up and leave as soon as possible. Not next year, not in a few months, as soon as possible.
And not for a business.
Not for a business either.
Not to come save African people.
And that's a deprogramming.
Yes.
I know, I understand you, because we've been programmed to think unless I have a business plan, then I'm going to be consumed. But that's an American ideology.
Are prisoners thinking about a business while they're in jail, or are they thinking about being free? The first step is to get free. How about let's get free first? Let's leave the prison first. Then we can figure out how we're going to make money.
And this is the thing. If you study like how prisoners behave when they exit, there is this phenomenon among some prisoners where they have post-traumatic stress, where they want to go back to prison. Now, how does that happen? How does somebody... Usually the people who have the worst stress are the people who's in prison the longest. So if you're in prison a long time and you get out of prison and you want to go back, why is it you want to go back? It seems very illogical. You want to go back because the prison culture has infected you to the point that you don't even know how to conceive of a reality outside of that prison.
And you look at Africa in disgust, and you ready to just jump ship and go back to the prison.
You think it's dirty.
You
not understanding that Africa is the most abundant place on earth.
You didn't do the work before you got here. You came here for business. You coming here for business, it's going to be real easy. You can find a lot of reasons to return. That's why we say don't come here for business, because you can find every little thing is going to irritate you. Let me tell you, you can find a lot of things that's going to be like, because you didn't come here for the right reasons. But if you come here has nothing to do with business and only to save your family and yourself, everything is going to look amazing. Because you're going to be like, oh God, the sky, the air, everything is amazing here. If you come here because you escaped prison. If you compare this to prison, there is no comparison.
Yes.
But if you comparing it to the business and the money you was able to make in prison, oh, you're going to go back. And you're going to have all the excuses as to why Africa is unlivable for people that came from America.
And prison also gives a lot of people, they think, security, because you get guaranteed meals, you get guaranteed living quarters, you can sleep in a bed, guaranteed.
Yep.
You know, and I'm like, well, yes, that's guaranteed, but at the expense of your psychological sovereignty. You have no, because you're under the command of somebody else when you're in prison. And a lot of Africans, they rather be under the command of yurugu in the comforts of their home than risk the discomfort of facing the world while being sovereign. And what we said when we made our decision was, we don't care how uncomfortable it is. I used to say, and it's not even an exaggeration, even though it sounds like one, I would live in a box in Africa before I live in a mansion in America. A box, I don't care, because I hate yurugu that much.
That much.
I don't want to live in the presence of my enemies.
Somebody was like, if they gave you a house and told you it was free, would you stay in America? Absolutely not.
No.
Would a prisoner, that's like literally asking a prisoner, all right, if I gave you a nice prison and I put you away from the other prisoners and I told you everything is taken care of, would you want to, what they gonna say? They gonna be like, no, let me out. What type of questions? But when you don't look at America as a prison, that's the problem right there. So don't come here for your business. Come here for spiritual reasons only, and that's why we talk about studying. We don't just come with these notes and these feelings or whatever you may want to call it. We come with books. We come with elders, people for you to refer to go back and look at and study and watch their lectures. Like, it's not just a feeling. This is something that you have to work at and really dig deep. We're at spiritual warfare when it comes to America. So you really have to study.
Yes.
And without that, you are going to make irrational decisions, and you're going to do things based off of your own self-satisfaction. And that's a very un-African thing to do.
Ashe. And so I think that pretty much wraps up. And this is a very passionate video for us, because we feel that unless we attack these things that we see as cultural assaults against our people, they'll be allowed to metastasize and grow, and then we'll just be consumed by it. Right. So we feel we're doing what we're called to do when we make these videos. We aren't, as my wife said, we aren't just doing it for views or just to get like any type of recognition. This is to reach those people who are sincerely committed to liberation of self.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like, we may go times without making videos, because we're not out here just trying to put out content to stay relevant. Like,
no analytics. I don't look at the analytics.
We don't care about none of that. Like, at the end of the day, and I make videos, right? So I could care, but we don't care, because at the end of the day, it's not about being on YouTube and having subscribers. We don't ever tell people to subscribe to our channel. If you want to subscribe. If you don't. But what we're here for is the liberation of African people. That's it. Yeah. We don't care about content. We don't care about staying relevant. We might go ghost for 2 months and come back with 5-6 videos if we want, or we may not. Yeah. At the end of the day, because it's not about anything other than the liberation of African people and getting us to safety. If it's not about that, we don't have nothing to talk about.
I should. All right, so we love you, African family.
We do.
We really appreciate those who listen to our words intently and are operationalizing the stuff we say, because we don't want people to just say, oh yeah, that cool.
Sounds cool.
Like, we're pleased, and it kind of gives us joy when we see that people have been activated to act in a way that is self-honoring and self-affirming. Yeah. So again, we value you all sincerely, and we'll be back when we decide. You know, we
may make another video today or tomorrow.
Yeah, we may make another very soon. So again, everybody keep fighting. Yeah. Recognize who your enemy is, and never give up on African liberation. Kwaheri.
Kwaheri.